Hey y'all, Amber here. This week's video is my character Dominico Sherwood. He is the father to another of my characters and the mate of my vampire Sheila, who also goes by Sydney, that I think I did a video on, and if I did, I'll have her linked in the description and the card, along with profiles and all of that, like usual, down in the description. I know last week was my chibi of Maya Fey from Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Specifically, her appearance in Spirit of Justice. I do plan on doing Pearl and Mia at some point down the line. I'm not sure which version or age for Pearl, but I'll figure that out. And I'm not sure when I'm going to do them. However, you can keep yourself, keep posted for that if you're at all interested. I'm also entertaining fan art requests for other chibis or illustrations or whatever. Another video down the road might be Lorelei from Pokemon. I have a basic sketch. I'm not sure when I'll finish it, and I'm not entirely sure I'm going to record it, but that's another possibility you might see. So if you're at all interested in seeing fan art, feel free to leave your suggestions down below and keep posted. I might post them here anyway. Anywho, let's go down with this. Dominico, unlike many mana hunters, did not have a tortured or miserable life. Not really, anyway. Rogue mages and non-humans had never really hurt him personally in any way, but he had seen that they caused great misery to those that they did target. He wished that they would be brought to proper justice, whether through his own hands or the hands of other mana hunters. So, he decided to dedicate his life to becoming the best mana hunter he could be. And the fact that he had been born with a mana trait, or rather a hunter trait. Comically enough, side note, all the hunter traits were actually born from mana. Way back when. So they use mana in order to hunt out mana, even though all of them will deny it. Anyway, the fact that he had been born with a trait made it all that much easier. Nico's trait was in his olfactory senses, his nose. He could, quite literally, smell out mana and non-humans. He could smell when a person had a high concentration of mana, and could even discern what the mana element was, depending on minute differences in scent. For example, if somebody's more earthen-based, it would smell more like rock. Like, it would smell rocky or whatever. Water would have, more of a scent of petrichor. Fire would be more charcoaly, etc. And, of course, non-humans all had specific scents to them that were distinct and front and center for them. An example would be lichens tended to smell like a wet dog. And not just to him, to be fair. However, he could pick up on it a lot easier. But his nose made it that disguises that any mages or non-humans attempted to utilize were non-effective against him, as he would literally be able to smell out who and what they were. He became the leader of a well-known band of mana hunters, and they traveled the lands, taking down rogues when they came across them. However, something was not sitting right with him. He'd noticed that his colleagues were starting to become quite, shall we say, radicalized. They were losing all sense of nuance and were taking out any mages and non-humans that they came across, no matter what it was that they were doing, citing that they would only be trouble later on if they were allowed to live, as that was the fate of all that were quote-unquote different. Nico even felt that way. He felt that way too, to an extent. However, that completely changed when he met a young vampire named Sheila. She was alone, she was scared, she was just trying to find her way in the world. She didn't wish to harm humans, and even cursed how she'd been turned into a vampire by the woman who had taken her in, who had legally adopted her, named Elizabeth Bathory. Yes, that Bathory. I wove her into this. I'm pretty sure I did a video of her, as I said, Sheila that is, and it goes a bit more into her relationship with her adoptive mother. I think I'll link. If there's a video, I'll link. Feeling pity for her, Nico started to realize that perhaps it was time to look at the world in shades of gray instead of just the plain black and white that mana hunters tended to see. He knew that his band would kill her on sight, and he also knew that many other groups would as well. So, he decided to take it upon himself to find her a shelter in a secluded area. That shelter in a secluded area ended up being a rather nice log cabin that was deep in a forest in a clearing, where she could live her life without fear of being seen or discovered. He'd even allowed her to feed off of him when she desperately needed to, and it provided her with occasional but necessary sustenance. It saved some poor soul, and that was more than enough for him. Eventually, this led to them becoming friends, and that just grew. They ended up falling in love with each other and getting into a proper relationship. It became serious enough that despite him being a manhunter, she ended up pregnant with his child. This caused him to become resolute in something he had been pondering for a while. He was planning to retire from being a manhunter and settle down with Sheila, raise their child together. Sadly, that did not come to pass. Somehow, the hunter band he was heading had learned of Sheila's existence in the woods and made plans to find her and kill her. However, by then she had already birthed their son, Elias, and Nico refused to let them die. Elias. He goes by Jaden. It's his middle name. Anyway, Jaden was the first video I did that has the voiceover about the character. So I'll do all the linking stuff with him for if you're interested to go check his out. He would not let them be taken away from him, so one night, Nico snuck away from the group in the middle of the night and made his way to the cabin to warn Sheila of the danger that was coming. Granted, he'd been so worried about his family and so focused on saving them that he hadn't noticed that his group had tailed him to the cabin. Once Nico was attempting to help his lover and child escape, they were confronted by the band. He was branded as a betrayer and a heretic, and the group declared that they would all die there. Nico, he wasn't going to go down without a fight. However, the group did come prepared with incendiary weapons, which they intended to use to burn down the cabin, alongside all three of them. And keep in mind, this is in an era where electricity wasn't a thing. A random fire was not entirely unheard of. Candles fell over, after all. What the group was not expecting was that Sheila also had access to special mana, and it allowed her to create a portal of mana for the three of them to escape. As they prepared to, though, the band made the declaration that they would find Sheila wherever she ran and would end her no matter what. Nico said he would never let that happen and insisted that the two of them left without him, that he would catch up later. What followed after Sheila fled was nothing short of a massacre. Nico managed to defeat all that had followed him. Granted, that was because he had sparred and fought with all of them enough that he knew their ways of fighting. Anyway, the cabin burned down around them, and he didn't come out of the encounter unscathed. He barely escaped from the burning building, but his injuries from his former colleagues, as well as the fire, made it so that he was literally crawling away from his former home. He collapsed several meters away from it, and he just stayed there, ready to accept his death, but lamenting how he was leaving his love and his son. However, as fate would have it, he was actually discovered by a very powerful and influential mage that had been in the area, and she had noticed the blaze. She used her mana to quell the flames before a forest fire began, though the house was demolished and was barely anything more than cinders. She asked him what had happened, and after he managed to explain the situation, she opted to help. She took him away from the scene, tended to his injuries, and he ended up learning that he had been saved by Holly Remington, the head of the Mage Council. She then offered him the chance to work for her and the council, taking care of problematic mages and rogue non-humans, and in return, she would pay him and allow him to search for his love and child unimpeded. Once he had agreed, she also gave him a little something that would extend his life considerably. Over the following weeks, months, years, decades, Nico worked for Holly and searched for Sheila and Elias, though he had no luck in finding them for the longest time. It wasn't until much later that he learned that Sheila was going by the name of Sydney and Elias was going by the name of Jaden. Once he'd learned that, and learned that Sydney had been given the position of one of the heads of the Triad, which is basically the Council for Non-Humans, he finally managed to find her, seek her out, reconnect with her, and their son. Currently, he still works for the Council, but also for the Triad as well, taking down individuals deemed problematic for the both of them. But he has now reconnected with his love and son, and feels forever grateful for the night that Holly found him and gave him a future. And that is the story of Nico. He's still a bit of a work in progress, I admit. One thing that wasn't really mentioned in here, but was mentioned in the other one, is he's really good friends with Marcus. They're best friends, have been for years. But yeah. Anyway, next week's is going to be, I'm not entirely sure. I think my little poison girl, Lily, but that might change. Regardless, this one's done. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for fan art to do, let me know. If you have any questions about Nico, let me know. And I'll end it here. Stay cool, cats. I'll catch you on the flip side. And this is Amber, out.